Mike here from Bikes by Mike with another cycling related video. Today I'll share my #1 trick to stay warm on winter rides. I think I've accidentally stumbled upon what is by far the best base layering solution if you want to stay warm and dry on super cold rides. And I've never heard anyone mention it before. Okay, let's get to it. After years of testing out different types of clothing and different materials, I found the single best method to stay warm and dry on rides. Yes, it all starts with a good base layer, but it's not that simple. On a recent ride, when it was a brutal minus 14 degrees Celsius, I stumbled onto something quite remarkable. By combining two specific fabrics in a way that goes against pretty much all conventional wisdom, I accidentally created what felt like a heated base layer. I'm going to show you exactly what I did, why it works so well, and how it might just change the way you dress for winter riding. Generally, most experts agree that what you choose as your base layer is your most important clothing decision because it's the only piece with direct contact with your skin. Not only that, but it also impacts the effectiveness of every other layer you put on top of it. And this is true. If you're wearing a crap base layer that just makes you cold and clammy, nothing you put on top will make you warm, or you'll need twice as many layers to get the job done. That part I agree with. In terms of your actual choice of base layer materials, you're typically guided to two main options. First, you've got natural fibers, and merino wool is king here. It's fantastic. It's soft, it doesn't stink, and it keeps you warm even when it gets a little damp. I have a whole drawer full of merino base layers, and they're my go-to for a lot of the cold weather rides. On the other side, you have synthetics, polyester, polypropylene, and all those fancy brand name fabrics. I have a ton of these types of layers as well. These things are masters at wicking. They pull moisture off your skin and push it out like crazy, and they dry way faster than wool. The trade-off? They can make you feel really clammy and cold the second they get wet. Plus, unless an antibacterial coating has been applied to the fabric, or in the case of this Santini base layer, introducing silver or some other antibacterial material into the process, they can get smelly really fast. My base layer of choice up until recently was merino wool. Yes, it retains more water than most synthetics, but given the natural properties of wool, it does this in a way that makes you feel much drier than you would otherwise with a moisture-wicking synthetic fabric. It has worked really well for me, but is there an even better solution? So I would have been happy spending the rest of my winter cycling life going with my usual merino wool base layer. But then I started thinking about mesh base layers. I mean, I didn't really have to work hard on the thinking part. It's staring me in the face like almost every day because I have a whole slew of mesh base layers. Actually, I've got a ton of all different kinds of base layers, including close weave varieties, some merino, some not. But let's not get sidetracked focusing on my obsession with base layers. So, back to the mesh base layer discussion. I got into the habit of wearing base layers on summer rides about a decade ago when a lot of pro riders were wearing them. The idea was that the open design maximizes airflow, creating little air pockets between your skin and jersey to help sweat evaporate, pulling away some of your body heat with it, which helps keep you cool. That theory has long since been debunked. And even with that knowledge, I still wear a mesh base layer on most summer rides. The reason I do this is that they just make me feel more comfortable and less clammy, as I never really feel the sweat of a jersey against my skin. Without a doubt, they do a better job than pretty much any other fabric of keeping moisture away from your skin. So this got me thinking that maybe there's a use for mesh base layers for winter riding where staying dry and whisking moisture away from your body is even more important. Apparently this isn't a new thing, and athletes, particularly those from Norway, swear by mesh year-round for cross-country skiing and mountaineering. These are people who train in some seriously punishing conditions. The logic is that air is the best insulator. A close weave fabric, once it's wet, loses a lot of its insulating power. Even wool, which is one of the best for providing good insulation even when wet, isn't perfect. But a mesh base layer, by its design, can't get saturated with water or sweat. It just mechanically moves moisture away while trapping a layer of dry, warm air right next to your skin. The holes aren't a weakness, they're the whole point of it. Your body heat warms up the air in these pockets, creating a thermal barrier. At the same time, the polypropylene material, or whatever it's made of, is hydrophobic. It physically can't absorb water. So sweat is immediately pushed away from your skin to whatever is on top of it. I've even seen a gear review video where a guy wrapped a mannequin with a heating pad connected to a thermostat, running through an AC power meter. He then placed the mannequin into a temperature-controlled chest freezer and measured the amount of energy it took to maintain a certain body temperature. The base layer that requires more energy to maintain the same body temperature is the colder or less effective base layer.
In my lab test, the mesh base layer used on average 20% less energy to maintain the same temperature. That means the mesh is about 20% warmer than a closed weave fabric.
So I decided to try it out for myself. I wanted to keep all variables constant, so I made sure to wear the same kit I usually put on for winter rides. But instead of wearing my typical merino base layer, I put on a mesh base layer. I then added my synthetic mid-layer jersey I usually use, along with a heavier outer layer and a windbreaker vest. I kept my lower body clothing exactly the same, wearing my thermal winter tights over leg warmers and heavy 45 North wool socks. I also tested this out at outdoor temperatures I was familiar with, like between -7 and -9 degrees Celsius. What did I find? Well, I didn't really notice a difference. I wasn't colder wearing the mesh base layer, but I can't say definitively that I was warmer either. But if that's the case, then since the mesh base layer is lighter than almost any merino wool t-shirt you'll find, you could say pound for pound, the mesh base layer outperforms merino based on weight. So a single mesh base layer just didn't do it for me. But I really like the insulating properties of both the mesh fabric and merino wool base layers. So what if I combine them and double up my base layer? Again, to keep things consistent, I kept my clothing the same, except instead of just putting on a mesh base layer, I added a merino wool base layer on top. My next layer was my Pedla breathable synthetic mid-layer jersey, followed by my breathable outer jacket, and lastly, my windbreaker vest. I tested it twice, both days with identical temps between -7 and -9 degrees Celsius. Actually, on one of the rides, it started out even colder at -14 Celsius. And what did I find this time? I felt noticeably warmer wearing my double base layers, even at a really cold -14 Celsius. Not only was I not cold, I felt drier and less clammy than I ever do on rides. But what struck me the most was how much warmer and more comfortable I actually felt, even at -14 degrees. Not only did I not feel cold, it actually felt like my base layers were slightly heated. I've never experienced that feeling before. So what exactly is going on here? Well, it's not magic and it's not complicated. It's just playing to the strengths of each fabric. First, you have the mesh layer against your skin. It's made of polypropylene and its fibers are hydrophobic. They just can't absorb water. When you sweat, the moisture has nowhere to go but out, away from your skin. And at the same time, that grid structure creates all these little pockets of air. Your body warms that trapped air and it becomes this perfect lightweight layer of insulation that can't get wet. Second, you have the snug merino wool layer on top. As the mesh pushes moisture vapor away from your body, the merino is there to grab it. Merino is hydrophilic. It loves water. It can absorb a ton of moisture without feeling wet or cold. It acts as a buffer, pulling sweat out of the little microclimate the mesh creates and spreads it out so it can evaporate through your outer layers. This combination solves the main problem of every other system. A merino-only system eventually gets soaked. A synthetic-only system feels cold and clammy when wet. This double layer system gives you the amazing moisture wicking of synthetics right at the skin with the awesome warmth of merino as the next line of defense. You get the best of both worlds. This is, without doubt, my favorite way to layer for deep winter, cold weather riding. I've tried every other option up to this point and nothing compares. Trust me. Now, I guess you could say that it's not fair to compare my double base layer solution with just wearing a single piece of clothing. And you'd be kind of right. I am technically adding another base layer, so it should make it warmer. The thing is, if using the right gear, this double layer will weigh no more than many heavier single base layers, and will add no more bulk. Tell me what you think. What do you think is the most effective base layer solution? If you're struggling with the cold, I really encourage you to give my method a try. That's all I got for today, folks. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you're not a subscriber to this channel, please subscribe as it allows me to produce more content for all of you. See you next time. Happy rolling.